All right. So I know I keep saying, oh, there's nothing left to say. There's nothing left to say. And oh gosh, I keep saying there's nothing left to say. At some point, I got to take a long break. And, whenever I say that, it's almost as if that's cueing the universe to give me something else to talk about, to have another epiphany, another awareness, another concept to cover. And it's almost like clockwork, because every single time I think there's nothing more to talk about, there's something more to talk about. However, it's actually what I have been wanting to reach. What is that? Well, Rosicrucian has so many different religions. Okay, it's the Christian Gnostics, Jewish mystics, it is Greek and Roman and Egyptian concepts, antiquity, and Stoicism is part of the Hermetics. Okay, it's also Hermetics. Stoicism is part of Hermeticism. And it is right along the line with how personalities are programmed into people via hormones and hormone triggers and trauma and all of that. And so the four humors that I came upon and discovered, as far as theoretically, was through the Greek, studying Greek mythology, and of course the medicine of the Middle Ages. And so I figured out that, of course, I was scripted to be more sanguine, with a little bit of choleric, but not so much phlegmatic, like neutral. I wasn't programmed, scripted to be neutral. I was programmed, scripted to be not only academic on some level, but also hot chick, like I was back in my early 20s. So the last 7 years, when I did the whole J juice and I started releasing those demons and all the different colors, a lot of yellow in my toilet. And that was a lot of the choleric bile that contributed to the anger, the energy, all the things that you saw come out of me the last 7 years through Facebook and Facebook Lives, and even my studying and justifying my concepts and claims. And so then I also noticed that the sanguine was also was releasing. Okay, what is sanguine? The love, funny, always a positive outlook. And of course, what triggers sanguine is, sexuality. What triggers sanguine is also animals and children, pets, and pleasure in paradise, cannabis, alcohol, drugs, supplements, friends, family, all of that social interaction. That's what contributes to sanguinity, which is what was the premise of the 1960s hippie cultural revolution, as well as the Christian revival. And that's what most religions are based upon, is love, sexuality, and then when that's depleted, then anger and resistance and denial. So this last month, when I was leaking so much mucus, essentially phlegmatic, and it was just pouring out of both sides of my nose. It wasn't just one side like it has been the last 7 years. It was both sides of my nose. And then I reached a point where I could read things that I would purposely ignore because it would trigger something, a gut reaction. I would read something, and not only did I not get a gut reaction, but I actually sort of laughed. Which is then like, is that really stoic? Well, it's a different way of relating to information that used to trigger me in a different way. It triggered me in such a different way. And then, of course, I purposely have very specific triggers on my Facebook to see if I can read certain people's pages and not get a gut reaction. And so I would go through and scroll, and I would see just like condensed versions of like hate and anger and love. And usually if I wanted to go and give a balancing argument to that, I wouldn't obviously, confront anyone, but there's a way to get out those demons, the trauma of defense, even though no one was offending me, but I needed to get out my side of it for whatever reason. And so instead of me posting whatever they posted, but erase the names and add my spin to it, I'm just like, okay, these people are traumatized. They're full of love. They're full of hate. They're full of cancer, disease, and chronic illness. They have a lot of trauma. They have unresolved trauma. This is the way they self-medicate. And it was like I walked myself through understanding why they post what they post, why they're in denial. And then I didn't have the gut reaction to go and scoff or comment in disgust on my own page. It's like I've pretty much accepted that you can't change people. You don't even have to defend yourself, but not that you ever had to defend yourself, but there was like no major emotional reaction to anything. Because whether you target someone specifically, or you post, or you find a strategic way to counter somebody else's argument by taking from their page and put it on your page without actually going through that interaction. Either way, it's either in a direct confrontation or an indirect confrontation. Any kind of confrontation, regardless of how it manifests, and even denial, is a way to deal with trauma. And so you almost can't even, get mad at people when they do live in that type of reaction, whether it's denial. How do you know it's denial? And how do you know they're not stoic? Because this is what's interesting. Tanya. And I've been noticing Tanya's page the last few months. And when trying to get her to react to stuff and everything, and she doesn't react. She doesn't react at all. I don't see any kind of aggressive. She just posts. She shares some of my posts, but she doesn't put any spin on it like I do. She just posts that here's what's going on. And then when I finally figured out that I have reached that stoic stage where it's like, I'm not mad at you. You do what you do, Everyone has to deal with whatever trauma they deal with. They self-medicate and whatever. And I figured that out. She's like, well, I'm 57 years old. And I noticed that, I what did she say? Crap. I don't have it memorized. But no, not that I should, but... So this is what she said. She says, I just turned 57. I would say I'm more phlegmatic. My emotions used to be all over the place. Now I just mostly say how it is, not mean, just how I see things. I see people's reactions and don't want to do anything different. I just have to watch it all. Watch it all. It's hard to take sometimes, but that's the choice they made for themselves. And I'm like, oh my God, congratulations. I think you reached that way before me. I can tell by what you post. And I said, thank you for sharing that, because that's exactly what I've seen. I've been wanting her to react, and I've been making her wrong for not reacting the way I react. But remember, I've had to deal with releasing the demons. And the way I do it without destroying somebody else is I do it in an indirect way, which can be also just as confrontational. But it's a way that I've strategized to release my demons without completely destroying somebody else. But she reached that before I did. That's amazing. That's why we want our Facebook crowd, so we can always find something, even though we may not reach whatever there is, we could see the examples out there and maybe even hindsight be like, wow, yeah, no shit. Things do come together later on when all the conditions are right. And so, so I reached that point of stoicism. And we are in the collapse of America. I already knew that a long time ago, even back, even around 9/11. I knew that was the beginning based upon the conspiracy world. But of course, facing that notion, facing that reality, that truth, it takes conditioning. Because remember, we've been in such an insulated cocoon, America, who's we, America, the first world, at least America, for so many years. Yeah, we had Pearl Harbor and we had 9/11, but still we were like, oh, well, that was just a war, and that was World War II, and then it's, the whole, I don't know, the conspiracy world, or before that, it was the terrorism, and we can just chalk it up to terrorism and somebody, dropped the ball, and so that's how things were kind of explained away, and people went back to what they were doing before. It kind of, it's there, and some were phased, some were unfazed, or like, yeah, whatever, and they go back to their daily life as if nothing else really happened, and that was just another event that they had to get through. But now we're seeing that that was like a major kickoff to the reality that, yeah, it's the fall of America. And the patriots, of course, are against that, and the reality, been trying to resist. You've seen that. But at some point, some people will face the reality. Other people will self-medicate. And so, and they don't want to face the pain that what they thought they knew is not so anymore. And what was stable to them is now going to be unstable. It's going to be a lot of fear of the unknown. Oh, absolutely. I got into the insurance world, and I learned how to analyze risk. Not that I was like, a professional. Yeah, I was, but I had a license, but there was a lot more than just what was told, during the exams, and even what companies you go to, because you might be just doing auto or home or life insurance and boat insurance and whatever insurance. And so then you're realizing that, okay, there's a lot more risk out there. And I already was programmed with instability and fear of people, places, and things. And so obviously the insurance world seemed like a good fit as I look back on it. And then now in this environment with so much unknown, but also known, because you've been given indicators, you've been told with movies, if you choose to pay attention, watch the Netflix, Leave the World Behind, listen to the conspiracy world, read their information. The more you stick your head in the sand and deny that this reality is actually happening, the more you will be left unaware, and you won't know how to analyze risk for what it is. And you'll walk into something not realizing how dangerous it is, and then you won't survive it. And that's the thing about Bambi, that I made that assertion about Bambi and Disney. They were showing you, yes, when you're a child, everything should be so insulated, right? That was the notion, that children should be insulated and so well protected to such an extent. And yes, maybe that might be true on some level, but when will they learn how cruel the world can actually be, given what we have programmed in people and what kind of trauma people have gone through domestic violence and sexual violence and other types of violence, drugs and alcohol, and that your kids are going to be facing some really aggressive things. And are they going to be prepared for that? Or are they going to think that life is so wonderful and hearts and flowers, and they're going to just go gallivant down over here, not realizing there's danger over there, and they get caught unaware, and then they learn the hard way how cruel the world really is? You really want your kids to be woken up like that? You really want yourself to be woken up like that? But people are now finally realizing that their little insulated, homogenized world of pleasure and paradise and family and friends and politics, religion, and science was just kind of like the setup for eventually the fall later on. But the system kept warning you, climate change, climate change, climate change. You got to be able to do, change the way you do things. We can't live in a disposable world anymore. It's time to scale down your consumption, your spending habits. Climate change, climate change. People are like, no, they're in resistance, they're in resistance, they're in denial, in resistance, in denial. Don't want to read anything else but their own, scripture that gives them a specific world they want to live in. They don't realize that they are connected to an outside world. You can't stay homogenized. The fact that I traveled so much and went from job to job to job, town to town to town, boyfriend to boyfriend, and lifestyle to lifestyle, to belief system to belief system. I was built for this shit. I was built for change. Some things you can't ignore. And the only way I would survive my lifestyle and belief system the last 50 years was be able to face all the crap when it comes to change. Face breakups, face being fired, face people saying you're stupid, face people, that don't know who you are and question what you're doing here, why are you here, and make their judgments and all that stuff. I mean, that's the thing, is that for me to survive the last 50 years, I had to face everything. There was no denial. I couldn't get lost in alcohol and drugs and crazy amounts of sex and stay homogenized in a town and never go anywhere. If I did go anywhere, be with another homogenized group that only believed in one thing. No, I purposely put myself in situations where I had to figure out how to strategize my survival. And sometimes those situations were because I was trying to go away from one situation, went to another one, and figure out that wasn't safe. And then you realize that nowhere is safe. Either you protect yourself, or you're going to walk into some place that you think is going to be protecting you, and they're going to take advantage of you. And that's the lessons right now that we're learning, that there's nowhere safe. You have to protect yourself, or you succumb. You won't survive. You'll be like a Bambi. And sometimes Bambi actually survived that, but you'll be like a Bambi and you won't know how to run away from fire. You'll walk right into the fire because you don't feel the burns, because mommy and daddy protected you. All your friends and family and positive religion and science protected you. So you never had to feel the pain and suffering of lessons. And so now, so the system had their experiments. Everyone's been programmed in whatever they were programmed in. Some had a more of an intense program than others. And so then some people can, are able to deal with the changes and instability. And then other people are going to have to, it was done in a scientific way that was legal. And other people are going to learn the hard way. They're going to learn what I went through a controlled, synchronized chaos. But it's going to have deadly outcomes. That's the thing. I had the luxury of not having a deadly outcome to whatever training I went through. But imagine those out there who are completely unaware and completely resistant to change and listening to information. They might have deadly outcomes to their resistance. They weren't lucky enough, like I was, that I was given the tools to understand fear and pain and suffering without actually it being illegal. And so that way, when I went out in the world, which I did, and I got into the situations where there's pain and suffering and fear, I knew how to get out of it. I mean, I might have to experience some crazy shit, but I was able to survive it and live to tell about it without bringing anyone down with me, because I chose to go in those situations. I never went to court against anyone that had charges against them for other situations and being a witness to somebody else. No, that wasn't my fight. That was somebody else's fight. And so I took personal responsibility for all the situations I put myself into and vowed never to get into them again. And then now I could see danger for what it is, and I will listen to the government. Stay home and stay safe. Wear a mask if it's necessary. And I did for a few years, like a year or so. Get out of harm's way. Full tank of gas. Save food, water, and fuel type of thing. Get your affairs in order. Figure out what you can live on. Cut down your spending habits. Don't get greedy. Don't be traveling, especially when you have that movie, Leave the World Behind, and there's planes falling out of the sky and container ships going off course and loud piercing noises and animals acting funny and all this shit. And they're telling you, yeah, we're going to be building back better. Well, to build back better, there's got to be destruction. Now you're seeing there is destruction, and you're not going to be able to anticipate where it's going to come next. You might be able to try to find a blueprint, potentially a loose blueprint, to see, okay, well, we saw that Maryland and, that Francis Scott Key, the bridge was taken down, and that's a symbol of, American freedom, Star Spangled Banner, right? That was so perfect right there to show you that that is the next phase that we're in. And who's to say what the next was? But then we have April 8th. And you saw then the timeline of history, and you see all the different states that were acquired right after the Star Spangled Banner. And it's basically all the states that came into to the Union, way back after 1776. And so April 8th can be another symbol of the assimilation to the world, that we're not going to be this special country that we have been told that we were. Where the takedown of America is here. It's been here. But people were in denial. They were in resistance. They were trying to fight it. You can't. It's a global thing. It's not just America. That's why you can't get mad at your local officials. You can't even get mad at Trump. You can't even get mad at Biden. Okay? All of them are products of their environment. They had charisma, they had background, they had financial success, they've had, experience and whatever, and everybody's used as a tool. Even I was used as a tool. Okay? Then I had to learn very quickly who the hell I was dealing with. And I know who the hell I'm dealing with. And that's why I straightened up very quickly and figured out what the hell the intentions are. Because you don't know who you're dealing with. Because they're all over, they're around you. You can't see. That's when you go to China. Like when I was in China and I was talking about the Falun Gong and to one of my hosts, and he was like, you don't talk about Falun Gong over here. And I was like in the middle of, I think, what was it? It was Tiananmen Square. It was, yeah. And he was saying, you don't know who's around. You don't know what kind of spies are around that will listen to you talk. I mean, yeah, foreigners are always followed in China when you're in areas because they don't want agitators or rabble rousers. And so you don't know who, what, and where went. So you be very careful. You be very careful. And you figure out that that the enemy is everywhere. If you want to make it about enemy and whatever, the enemy could be your friends and family. When they say, when you see something, say something. Absolutely. Shit, I learned that in the conspiracy world, in the J world, who I thought were my friends. Turned out that they actually were government sympathizers at the time. And I was anti-government at the time. And I thought so were my friends and moderators. But no, you know how quick that shit switches? When you don't do what someone says, they will use what they already knew was going to be. The government was going to be the end-all, be-all. And so they used the government against me. And I'm glad they did. Not only did they show that they weren't really truly anti-government, but that was the intent, was that government will always have the last say. Well, no shit. I stopped resisting. I figured that out pretty quickly. Very quickly. And so now you either have to accept what's going on. You don't have to accept it. You can resist all you want, but there's not going to make a difference. You don't know the playbook. You don't know where the next thing is going to happen, but they're giving you indicators. I mean, they're having a shooting drill today over there in Akron, Cleveland Mercy Hospital. It's an active shooter drill. I would stay far away from Akron Mercy Hospital today at 12:30 or 3:30 or whatever time it is. But again, people who are not aware, oblivious, self-medicating, they're going to go walk into situations, they're going to volunteer for situations, and you never know how they're going to end up. Something that was a drill, that was just a practice, turns live. You never know when shit will turn live. You don't. So you stay home, stay safe, you let others volunteer and do whatever, and you let others just walk into the face of whatever without realizing how dangerous shit is, and you let them be the sacrificial lambs. Don't be if you know what's going on, don't be the sacrificial lamb, because you know with synchronized chaos, there has to be a certain amount of DEATH. Do you want to be the one? It has to be a voluntary thing. Okay? So don't volunteer to be the human sacrifice. But people who go to the hospital system and the medical system and the holistic system and the surgical system and those who want to resist what's going on, they will be the human sacrifice. Those that will go fly on the planes and still go play pleasure in paradise and do whatever and travel and just not take what's going on seriously, they'll be the human sacrifice. I understand you have to work. You can still work and be very aware of your surroundings and not take any unnecessary risks. Okay? But that's the thing, those are in denial. They'll take unnecessary risks. They're like, oh, it's not going to happen to me. Nothing will happen to me. I'm invincible. I'm sure the people that are going across the bridge over there in Francis Scott Key Bridge thought that they were invincible because they're driving. But that's the thing. You don't know until you know. So then I'm like, Jason, how many bridges do you go over all the time when you're driving? He's like, well, I'm going over this bridge. Well, be aware. Watch where you're going. Look for shit. Look for stuff all around you. Don't stay on a bridge too long. No. So that's going to be another thing to be aware of. So you can only imagine then you start calculating your risks. Should I be going to this concert? Should I be going on this plane? Should I be going to diverse company? Should I be whatever it is that they're saying maybe you shouldn't? You might be second guessing every single thing you're doing now. Right now people aren't. They're waiting for something to happen and then they'll learn the hard way. And then, hey, you learn, right? Hopefully you survive learning the hard way. But that's what gave me so much insight is I've learned the hard way. And I remember I have cell memory. But you're going to find many people are going to learn the hard way. Some won't survive it. I'm just saying, do you have to learn the hard way? Do you have to be the voluntary human sacrifice? But again, that's, people's choices. Hey, you can be under the influence, in denial, pretend that nothing is going on, that your God is going to save you, or maybe you think that passing away and going to heaven is going to be a way to be saved. Okay, that's your belief. But wow. But I reached a point yesterday where I released those demons of humors. I can actually admit I am phlegmatic. And I have been proving that. It was just a matter of recognizing that's exactly what it is I am exhibiting, is phlegmaticism. That's even a word. And so, I can't make wrong anyone that is in extreme reaction because it's trauma. Everyone has their target. Either they target their Facebook, they hate, the World Economic Forum, or they hate me, or they hate Bill Gates, or they hate the doctors, or they hate, everyone has their specific God and Satan that they refer to when times are, when it's appropriate for them. And so when I realize that there's no one to hate, no one to love, I know what triggers hormones, and I don't purposely turn the faucet on any hormone. But you see me get out so much stuff. And part of me is still angry at the holistic system and like, well, have you guys repented for doing that? Yeah, that was a little the choleric still residual that I'm still mad at those that I knew that the holistic system was bad, and why do you still keep selling your remedies to your friends and family? But why is that even my business? Why would I even have a reaction to what somebody else does to those who've given permission for someone to take away their pain and suffering? And even if they don't realize in this environment how deadly it is, it doesn't even matter. They've chosen to be the human sacrifice. Why would I get in the way of that? If I don't want to be it, then I'm choosing not to be it. If they choose to take antibiotics and surgeries and everything else, that's their choice. Why do I have a response to that? Why do I have a reaction to that? And I realized there's no reason to have a reaction to other people's choices. There's none. And so then it's like, oh my God, a fucking freedom. Okay? And recognizing that those still have to deal with reacting, whether it's bitter humor and indirect, shade. And I've done all that. I've done bitter humor, indirect shade, direct shade, and anger and all that. And even, hearts and prayers. There's no hearts and prayers. There's no thoughts and prayers. It's not going to do a damn thing for anyone. And I have nothing to feel absolution for. So it's just what it is. And so Tanya, fucking A, I appreciate you. Thank you for being that example. Thank you for being that mirror. Thank you. And your 7 years seniority, you have 7 more years on this earth than I do. You have 7 more years of experience. And you're a type A. That's pretty phenomenal. And just keep eating and releasing what you are. And I appreciate that reflection. Okay? And so, being type O, you have as far as me being type O, when I'm around diverse company, it's taken on those demons like I did even the last couple of days. But even though I had arm pain this morning and I wrenched my arm in a weird way that I felt the pain, it reverberated and I felt it because I knew that I was releasing out of both sides of my nose and my body was farting and everything else. But it's easier to release those demons. And even though I take on the diverse company like my husband, because he came home yesterday, I was able to release it very quickly. And it was a little painful, yes, but being a type O, you take on the world's problems and you release them. And you still have to eat food. Blood type A has to eat food. Blood type B has to eat food. Okay? But it's one of those things where you need to take on the substance and release and just go through that process. And will people actually turn blood type O or A? Who's to say? So that's the thing about evolution. It can happen so quickly. I might say one thing about blood type and what's the optimal blood type as far as longevity potentially. But it could change. But here's the thing, we don't know. We don't know. But if you have more antigen than antibodies, we know antibodies are needed for protection. And that includes the weight, that includes the fat, that includes the ability to take on substance and release the demons. And so over time, will people have enough antibody protection to then warrant them to be blood type O and change their blood type? Well, we'll see. But we also know there's other scientific journals that say that those who are affected most by the COVID are blood type A's and B's. Why is that? Infection. It's building up the antibodies for protection and needing to bring on the food so you can add more substance for energy conversion. And even though I don't even know if I had the COVID or not, I never got tested, but I felt so much stuff the last 3 years. And I felt that demon inside just working its way out and blow my nose, and feeling the headaches and all the different things, the arm pain and the armpit rashes. But I was holding on to demons that had to be released. And so, was my experience worse than others who are opposite blood type or A and B? Well, everyone's going to have their version of it. You don't know what people are dealing with. They don't always tell you how bad, because all bad is relative. And so we just listen to each other's observations. And some will downplay it, some will upplay it. And who's to say if you think it's worse or not as worse? You don't know what people feel. So, but blood type O has antibodies for both blood type A and B. And so if you're missing antibodies, then you're going to have to develop them or get help from a therapy. And so everyone has a choice. Okay? And that's the thing about blood types. And so, but as far as Stoicism, could a person who's blood type O be Stoic? Absolutely. Absolutely, we're finding that. We're finding out so many things during this great reset and experiment. And you got to be aware, you can't be under the influence of cannabis. You can't be under the influence of supplements and drugs and alcohol. And you got to be really willing to face your fears. You can't be in denial about what's going on. But many are in denial because they're in fear. Absolutely, you should be in fear. See, those that were always the ones to put fear in other people, they thought they were God. And there are a lot of men that do that to not only women, but other men. They put the fear of bodily harm, the fear of death, the fear of whatever in other men. And so then it takes law enforcement or the government to then put the fear into them. And so when you have been so fearless and no one held you accountable as a man or a woman because you've used your power against other people, well, the government's going to say, you know what? You got to have someone to fear. Well, it's your government. You got to fear your freaking government. Because some kids are fearless against their parents, and then they turn into monsters later on, and they go and terrorize people. That's what happens when you don't have to be accountable to someone and no one's put the fear of God or fear of whatever in you. And that's the power of fear, is keeping people in line so they don't become despotic. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so if you have the fear of the government, then you might, and then they're like, hey, we're doing this, this, and this, and here are your choices, and you make your choices, and here's the consequences, and you chose, well, then you have no one to blame but yourself. I don't care if you agree with the changes or not, but these are the rules. These are the laws. This is what we're doing. Get on board or reap what you sow. Reap the consequences. Well, right now people are reaping consequences. And they're pissed the fuck off. And they have someone to blame. Because the system also gave them an absolution. Courtesy of the U.S. government, you get your dogs, you get your cats, you get your drugs, your alcohol, your cannabis, you get activism, you get all your religion, your politics, and your science dogmas, you get your supplements, you get every way out, and even in some countries you get state-sanctioned euthanasia. Government's giving you every way possible to get out so you don't ever have to be regretful or be accountable for your choices. See, the government's actually, a pretty cool entity to deal with if you understand what they're doing. All right, so So I'm not going to go and read on my post and everything. I pretty much summed it up. I figured out exactly what I was aiming for. Stoic, finally accepting things as self-evident. No reason to react with thoughts and prayers or anger or happiness or love, love, love. And I don't need an animal to pull those hormones. I don't need activism for an outlet. I don't need someone to blame or love. And I don't need drugs or alcohol or supplements. And if you do, good for you. More power to you. And so we all have choices. You don't have to have kids, but people choose to. Well, there's a lot going to happen with having children now in this environment. I hope you're prepared for it. So, you've been warned about everything. Whatever you choose, you're going to have to be accountable and be okay. I chose this. This is what's going to happen. All right. Bye.